Hey guys, LT Holt here, and this is my weekly update for February the 4th. Today we're going to be doing a whole batch of Zodiac letters and ciphers. This is going to be part one of a two-part series about the Zodiac letters and ciphers. And as always, my co-host in these endeavors is Mr. Zach Myers. Zach, how are you today, man?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Oh, Zach, where are you?
Did I go black again?
You're in the dark, Zach. You're in the dark. You're in the
Oh,
dark here. Oh my God, there you are.
wow.
What
How's
the?
everyone doing out there today?
Oh, well, I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing quite well.
Oh, okay. Well, now we're gonna now that we've had this little introduction here, we're gonna jump into the Zodiac's letters and ciphers. Okay,
Let's do it. I'm really excited.
yeah, we got a lot of letters and ciphers coming your way, and we have so many, in fact, that we need to start this off really quick because we got a lot to fit in here. Okay, so the very first letter was sent on July the 30th. Well, it wasn't sent, but it was received on July the 31st, 1969. Okay. By the time that happened, there had already been 3 slayings. December 20th of 68, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen had been murdered at Lake Herman Road, and July 4th of 69 in Blue Rock Springs. Both of these locations are in Vallejo, California. Mike Michaud and Darlene Ferrin were attacked. Now, Mike survived, Darlene did not. So 3 people have already been killed by the time the San Francisco Chronicle, Examiner, and the Vallejo Times received 3 identical letters along with parts of a cipher. And so now I'm going to show you and read to you the very first official Zodiac letter. Now, I should probably say that the Riverside case had a letter involved. I already covered that on an earlier show, the first show about suspects. So if you want to go back, I read that then. So we're going to start now with the first official Zodiac letters, okay? So here is what that first letter looked like. All right, so there's the letter received by the 3 newspapers along with a cipher. And it says, "Dear editor, this is the murderer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl on the 4th of July near the golf course in Vallejo. To prove I killed them, I shall state some facts which only I and the police know. Christmas. 1. Brand name of ammo, Super X. 2. 10 shots were fired. 3. The boy was on his back with his feet to the car. 4. The girl was on her right side, feet to the west. 4th July. 1. Girl was wearing patterned slacks. 2. The boy was also shot in the knee. 3. Brand name of ammo was Western." Here is part of a cipher. The other 2 parts are being mailed to the editors of the Vallejo Times and the San Francisco Examiner. I want you to print this cipher on the front page of your paper. In this cipher is my identity. If you do not print this cipher by the afternoon of Fry 1st of Aug 69, I will go on a kill rampage Fry night. I will cruise around all weekend killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again until I end up with a dozen people over the weekend. And it's signed with that crosshair symbol, which at this point doesn't mean anything because the Zodiac hasn't given himself a name. Okay, so that is the first letter. And it came with a cipher. And now I'm going to show you the cipher. You ready to see the cipher, Zach?
Let's do it.
All right. Now that cipher is, as you can see, in 3 parts. Each one was mailed to a different newspaper. You put them together, and it becomes what is known as the 408 cipher. They call it that because there are 408 symbols. Now, on August 8th of 1969, Keep in mind that the letter was received on January 31st of 69. Donald and Betty Hardin of Salinas, California, actually decoded this cipher, and it's the only cipher that was ever decoded. Okay, and what it says is, I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and they have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. And what follows after that is a series of letters. E, B, E, O, R, I, E, T, E, M, E, T, H, H, P, I, T, I. Now, those letters were thought at the time to just be leftovers. You know, I guess he wanted it to be 800 or 408 symbols, right? So he just put some stuff in it and make it nice and neat and square. Or maybe there's a message inside it. I don't think anyone has ever decoded any sort of message in that string of letters. As far as we know, it's just a string of letters. So that he hit the ground running, man. I mean, he had a letter, he got a cipher. The cipher was decoded. This did actually end up on the newspaper, just in case he was going to keep his promise and go on a kill rampage on Friday night. He did not go on a kill rampage Friday night. Who knows if that has anything to do with the fact that the letter was published. So what do you think about that, Zach?
I find, for one, that is probably one of my favorite letters because it was the first one. It's the, and for one, how it was even decoded in the first place is really awesome. Because for me, I'm so horrible at that kind of stuff, so I would have never been able to figure it out. But that's one of my favorite letters, just because it's just the first one that was to the police and the public and everything. So I'm just very fascinated by it.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the more famous letters, not only because it was the first, but it had the code that was broken, and it was a simple substitution code. Now, some people even think that, I mean, I've seen videos where they talk about Mr. Harding, the guy that decoded it, saying that he was the Zodiac Killer. So you can't escape suspicion because in that string of letters, there's the letter I, and then there's the letter M-E, me, and they're like, well, he's saying that it's me. I'm the guy. I decoded it, and I'm the Zodiac, But anyway, there are videos on all kinds of people being the Zodiac, so I'm not going to accuse Mr. Harding, but it's worth noting that he was considered by armchair detectives to be like, a suspect. So not by the police, by the way. Now, that was the first letter. That was on July 31st. Now, we have another letter that was sent on August the 4th. So that's, 3 days? It was received 3 days after they decoded the cipher, the 408 cipher. This time, it was sent to the San Francisco Examiner. But the San Francisco Examiner turned out not to be the Zodiac's paper of choice. He would rather have done it. He would rather have sent it over to the Chronicle, which is where he sent most of the other stuff. But this one was received only by the San Francisco Examiner. So let me show you that letter. All right. Now, here he is. He's starting to get a little more wordy. And what does this letter say, Zach?
This letter says, "Dear editor, this is the Zodiac speaking. In answer to your asking more details about the good times I had in Vallejo, I shall be very happy to supply even more material. By the way, are the police having a good time with the code? If not, tell them to cheer up. When they do crack it, they will have me." On the 4th of July, I not opened the car door. The window was rolled down already. The boy was originally sitting in the front seat when I began firing. When I fired the first shot at his head, he leaped backwards at the same time, thus spoiling my aim. He ended up on the back seat on the floor in the back, thrashing very violently with his legs. That's how I shot him in the knee. I did not leave the scene killing with squealing tires, racing engine as described in the Vallejo paper. I drove away quiet, slowly, so not to be drawn attention to my car. When the man who told the police that my car was brown and was a Negro about 40 to 45, rather shabby dressed, I was at a phone booth having some fun with the Vallejo cops when he was walking by. When I hung the phone up, the damn thing began to ring and drew attention to my car. Last Christmas. In that episode, the police were wondering how I could shoot and hit my victims in the dark. They did not openly state this, but implied this by saying it was well lit. It was a well lit night. I could see the silhouettes on the horizon. Bullshit. That area was surrounded by high hills and trees. What I did was tape a small pencil flashlight to the barrel of my gun. If you notice in the center of the beam of light, if you aim at a wall or ceiling, you will see a black dot in the center, about 3 to 6 inches across. When taped on a gun barrel, the bullet will strike exactly in the center of the black dot in the light. All I had to do was spray them as if I was a water hose. There was no need to use a gun sight. I was not happy to see this, that it did not get front page coverage. And then it ended with the crosshair symbol.
Yeah. And that was the first time he gave himself the name Zodiac.
Yes. And in this one, it's very interesting because he gives a lot of details about what he did, and it explains so much, like why the boy was shot in the kneecap, and the fact that, I mean, he's very arrogant. I mean, he doesn't like people to, I mean, nobody knows what happened, so we're going to come up with conclusions and stuff, but he gets kind of, angry and pissed when people get things wrong. Yeah, this is a very interesting letter.
Yeah, for sure. And there he's also giving, in the first letter, he gave kind of a brief overview, and now he's telling you how he attached the flashlight to the gun, and how, so he's getting a little more interested in expressing sort of the ingenious ways that he's going about killing people.
He's getting more cocky.
Yeah, he is. Well, I mean, and it's interesting because the first code was broken. So even in spite of that, he still feels like he's got the upper hand on everybody,
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the FBI looked at that, and they actually could determine what kind of paper that was written on. It was written on Fifth Avenue brand paper. And interestingly enough, as you saw from the photo, it was a 3-page letter, and on the last 2 pages, there were fingerprints.
Yeah.
So already he's kind of leaving a few clues for people. So that's how we got a couple of the fingerprints off the letters, was actually from the August 4th one. Now, after this letter was received, he went on to kill 2 more people. He killed Cecilia Shepard at Lake Berryessa on September 27th of 1969. And then August the 11th, he killed Paul Stein in San Francisco. So, and the next letter was not actually received until October 13th, and that's going to be the next letter that I show you. So he took a little break from writing there to kill some more people.
Interesting.
And then after Paul Stein, he decided he was going to write again, and he wrote almost immediately. He didn't write after Lake Berryessa. He let some time pass. He did write the message on Brian Hartnell's car door, but other than that, a letter wasn't received until after Paul Stein. So now I'm going to show you the October 13th letter, okay?
Okay.
And this letter is a little shorter, obviously, than the previous one, but it's a little longer than the first one, okay? And again, he starts off the letter with giving his name. Okay, this was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle, and in the envelope was a piece of Paul Stine's bloody shirt, so that people knew, I'm the Zodiac. I killed this guy a couple days ago, and now I'm going to give you another taunting message. And this is what the message says. It says, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a blood-stained piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did in the people in the North Bay area. The San Francisco police could have caught me last night if they had searched the park properly instead of holding road races with their motorcycles, seeing who could make the most noise. The car drivers should have just parked their cars and sat there quietly waiting for me to come out of cover. School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out." So, a new threat. He's gonna take out some school kids, which,
Yeah, that's never a good thing.
Yeah, no, not at all. And he's telling you how he's going to do it. And he'll go into more of that later on in one of these other, some of these other letters. But, there he is, he's just, now Paul Stine was the last official Zodiac slaying. Some people say that other people were killed after that. But as far as we know, Paul Stine was the last one. So that is the first letter after the last victim. And now he's starting to talk about changing his MO, which he had already done, because Paul Stine's murder was different than the previous murders. The Lake Berryessa murder was different than the previous murders. So he's changing it up. And now he's talking about, I'm not going to kill taxi drivers or kids at parks or kids in cars. Now I'm going to blow out the tires of a school bus, and I'm going to shoot the kids as they come out.
Yeah, he's trying to knock it up a few notches now.
And it sends San Francisco into an absolute panic because, nobody wants to send their kids to school on a bus that might be attacked by some crazy guy who is going to kill people because, hell, he's done it so many times. He's sending scraps of bloody shirts to the newspapers. So they have no reason to think that this is a bluff. This is a serious threat. If you had kids in San Francisco at that time, would you be sending them on a school bus?
No, honestly, I don't even know if they'd be going to school. I'd just be like, not letting them leave the house. That's a real scary situation.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. But this does not happen, and some time passes, and it's not until November the 8th that another letter is received. And this letter, it's actually not a letter, it's a card. And it's received, the San Francisco Chronicle yet again gets this. It's worth noting that between the letter I just showed you and the letter that we're going to talk about, a guy called in to the police and told them, that I'm going to call into a TV show and I'm the Zodiac Killer. And I want a guy named Melvin Belli to be on this show and talk to me. Actually, his first choice was F. Lee Bailey. And everybody knows, F. Lee Bailey is a famous defense attorney. So, and then he said, well, if you can't get F. Lee Bailey, I'll settle for Melvin Belli. Now, Melvin Belli was 62 years old in 1969, okay? He was a very well-known attorney. They called him the King of Torts, but he was also kind of a celebrity attorney. And he was the kind of guy that liked publicity and cases that had publicity around them. He had he worked with Zsa Zsa Gabor and Chuck Berry and Muhammad Ali and Lana Turner and Tony Curtis. The JFK assassination?
Oh, yeah.
He actually was the guy who defended Jack Ruby, the guy, the killer of JFK, right?
No way.
Yeah. So Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald, and then Jack Ruby went on trial, right? And and Melvin Belli said, hey, this sounds like a great case to get some publicity. And he jumped on that shit like nobody's business. And next thing you know, Melvin Belli was defending Jack Ruby, trying to get him off on reasons of insanity. So at this point, that was in the early 60s. This is at the late 60s. At this point, Melvin Belli is kind of an infamous figure, okay? So anyway, on the morning of October 22nd of 1969, he goes on AM San Francisco, which is hosted by Jim Dunbar. And while he's on the show, a young man calls in claiming he's the Zodiac Killer and talks to Melvin Belli and says that he needs help because he has headaches and he's acting very weird. Now, a lot of people, including Brian Hartnell, said, and Brian Hartnell, by the way, was the surviving victim from Lake Berryessa. They said that was not the voice of the Zodiac Killer. And Brian Hartnell heard it with his own two ears, you know. He said it was too young of a voice. It was a hoax. The guy that called in was not the Zodiac. Now, whether prompted by this TV appearance or what, Melvin Belli is going to come back into the story here shortly, okay? But not quite yet. I wanted to point that out just to keep in the chronology of how all this is going down. So that happened on October 22nd, 1969, the Jim Dunbar show. On November 8th, the San Francisco Chronicle received a card, a new message from the Zodiac. And now I'm going to show you that card. And there it is. The card itself says, "Sorry, I haven't written, but I just washed my pen." And it shows a pen dripping with water in it. And then you turn it over and it says, "I can't do a thing with it." All right. So, but there's another message involved in that card written by the man himself. So would you like to read that, Zach?
Yes. On the back of the card, it said, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I thought you would need a good laugh before you hear the bad news. You won't get the news for a while yet. P.S. Could you print this new cipher on your front page? I get awfully lonely when I am ignored. So lonely, I could do my thing." And then he gives a little code on the bottom that's, you know, just a bunch of months, and it says December, July, August, September, October equals 7, the number 7.
And what that's saying, those are the months that he murdered the people that we know about. But the interesting thing is he says 7. Now, there are 5 known victims by this point, 5 people who died from the Zodiac, but he's saying 7. So he's either counting the 2 people he injured but didn't die, or he's counting 2 people that we don't know about, 2 victims that are unknown.
He's so arrogant, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the people that didn't die. Like, he was so cocky that he just, or he, you know, that's how a lot of serial killers are. They even like to take credit for stuff they didn't do. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what he meant by that.
I agree. I do actually think in that case that he's referring to the 2 people he attacked but who didn't die, because that would add up to 7. Here in a little bit, we're going to find out that he has no problem putting extra digits onto his kill count. But with that card that I just showed you, was sent another cipher. Okay, and this is a very famous cipher, but not for the same reason as the previous one. I'm going to show it to you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, now this cipher is known as the 340 cipher because, like the other one, it has 340 characters in it. What's interesting about this cipher, it has never been decoded. It is an absolutely unsolved cipher, and many people pore over this thing and try to figure out what the hell it says. If you go on YouTube, you'll find a number of different videos where they're like, "I solved it, I solved it, I solved it." But in actual fact, nobody has ever really solved it. And that could be, there could be a lot of reasons for that. It could be that it is unsolvable. That he got so pissed off that his first cipher was decoded that he was like, "By God, nobody's decoding this one." And everybody's tried, including the FBI. Now, there is some kind of interesting stuff if you look up the actual FBI's attempts to decode this, because the FBI tried really hard, and they even at this point think that maybe if you take the bottom lines of the cipher and the top lines, and you like cut the page and put them side by side, that there's actually a message written across if you line up the bottom parts of the page and the top parts of the page. That's just a theory because no one has decoded it, so who knows? Right now it's gibberish, and it has remained gibberish ever since, you know, November 8th of 1969, right? So I don't know. What do you think, Zach? You think that'll ever get decoded?
But it's possible. I mean, we're coming into, you know, we're in 2019 now. It could possibly get decoded someday. It's very, I hope it does. I'm very curious to see what it says. Very fascinating that so many people could not figure it out until now. So yeah, I hope someday people, I'm being optimistic. I think they will.
Yeah. Well, and there's always a possibility. The weird thing about it is they've used computer programs and all kinds of stuff. It's interesting that a guy could write a code in 1969 that even to this day, computers can't even decode. You know, it's just, that's really
very impressive.
It is kind of impressive, yeah. But again, that might just be because it's unsolvable and there's just no rhyme or reason to it. It could just be, you know, a bunch of gibberish. Who knows? I don't know. I kind of think there's probably a message scrambled up in there somewhere because it seems like he likes to take time and do these things. And it just seems he wouldn't probably send something that had absolutely no message. But who knows? I don't know, man.
Well, and I agree. But one thing I can say about it is there's no way in hell he gave his name. So we can say that for certain. We know there's no way he gave his name.
Right. And even in the other cipher where he said, I'll give you my identity, you decoded it and it didn't give any identity that we know about. I mean, and again, a lot of people say that string of letters that I read to you, that maybe a name is mixed up in there somewhere. But I don't know. I don't think he's very interested really in giving his identity, right? Yeah, he's not really, because, you know, you don't want to slow down or stop his collecting of slaves. Now, that was a short message, okay? That was received on November 8th. And it's almost as if he decided, oh, yeah, and another thing, because he wrote another message. And this thing was 6 pages long, this letter. And it was received the very next day after that card that we just showed. Oh, and wow. Compared to that damn card, which is like a paragraph, this message goes on forever, okay? And I'm going to show you this November the 9th, 1969 letter. All right. As you can see, he's getting very wordy, right? So I'm going to read you this massive letter. It's, by the way, this was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle. It says, this is the Zodiac speaking. Up to the end of October, I have killed 7 people. I have grown rather angry with the police for telling their lies about me. So I shall change the way the collecting of slaves. I shall no longer announce to anyone. When I commit my murders, they shall look like routine robberies, killings of anger, and a few fake accidents, etc. The police shall never catch me because I have been too clever for them. 1. I look like the description passed out only when I do my thing. The rest of the time, I look entirely different. I shall not tell you what my disguise consists of when I kill. 2. As of yet, I have left no fingerprints behind me, contrary to what the police say. In my killing, I wear transparent fingertip guards. All it is 2 coats of airplane cement coated on my fingers, quite unnoticeable and very effective. 3. My killing tools have been bought through the mail order outfits before the ban went into effect, except one, and it was bought out of state. So, as you can see, the police don't have much to work on. If you wonder why I was wiping the cab down, I was leaving fake clues for the police to run all over town with. As one might say, I gave the cops some busy work to keep them happy. I enjoy needling the blue pigs. Hey, blue pig, I was in the park. You were using fire trucks to mask the sound of your cruising prowl cars. The dogs never came within 2 blocks of me, and they were to the west, and there was only 2 groups of parking about 10 minutes apart. Then the motorcycles went by about 150 feet away going from south to northwest. P.S. Two cops pulled a goof about 3 minutes after I left the cab. I was walking down the hill to the park when this cop car pulled up, and one of them called me over and asked if I saw anyone acting suspicious or strange in the last 5 to 10 minutes. And I said yes. There was this man who was running by waving a gun, and the cops peeled rubber and went around the corner as I had directed them. And I disappeared into the park a block and a half away, never to be seen again. Must print in paper. Hey, pig. Doesn't it rile you up to have your nose rubbed in your boo-boos? If you cops think I'm going to take on a bus the way I stated, you deserve to have holes in your heads. Take 1 bag of ammonium nitrate, fertilizer, and 1 gallon of stove oil, and dump a few bags of gravel on top, and then set the shit off. It will positively ventilate anything that should be in the way of the blast. The death machine is already made. I would have sent you pictures, but you would be nasty enough to trace them back to the developer and then to me. So I shall describe my masterpiece to you. The nice part of it is all the parts can be bought on the open market with no questions asked. The system checks out from one end to the other in my test. What you do not know is whether the death machine is at the site or whether it is being stored in my basement for future use. I think you do not have the manpower to stop this one by continually searching the roadsides looking for this thing, and it won't do to reroute and reschedule the buses because the bomb can be adapted to new conditions. Have fun. By the way, it would be messy if you try to bluff me. P.S. Be sure to print the part I marked out on page 3, or I shall do my thing. To prove that I am the Zodiac, ask the Vallejo cop about my electric gun sight, which I used to start my collecting of slaves. So, I tell you, he had a lot to say that day. The thing that interests me, now I will say that in that letter, there is a list of bomb components that I did not read. And I don't feel comfortable reading that because I don't want people making bombs. Because the diagram that the letter shows is actually a diagram to a bomb that could work. So if you want to look up what those ingredients are, you're on your own there. Because I'm not reading that on a YouTube show, okay? But
you can have the FBI, investigate you.
Yeah. So other than that, that was the letter in its entirety. What strikes me about that letter, Zach, is some of the verbiage does not seem to fit with a man who misspells words. If you notice in the kind of the later portions of the letter, when he's describing the bomb, it's a very articulate way of talking. And obviously in these letters, he misspells words on purpose. And he seems to do that to try and throw people off. Because he'll misspell a word somewhere. And then later on down the letter, he'll spell it correctly, which gives you the impression that he knows how to spell the word. But because if you misspelt a word, you would misspell it the same way every time.
Yeah.
If you know what the word is and you don't, and then you misspell it on purpose, you would not, So what's interesting about that is he's trying to disguise himself. And again, that's why I say that I don't think any of these codes or ciphers have his identity in them, because he's just trying way too hard to disguise himself. Now, he does give a clue there, and it might be one of his fake clues. He says that he has a basement. And the cops kind of went on that for a while, looking for suspects with basements, because that's not really a hugely common thing in California.
Yeah.
And if you saw the Arthur Lee Allen show, you know that Arthur Lee Allen had a basement, and actually a lot of crazy shit was found in that basement after his death. They served a search warrant after he was, they were going to serve it when he was alive, but he died a couple days before. And then they went down in his basement and they found a bunch of stuff, including the components of the bomb that I just sort of read to you. But again, we covered that on the Arthur Lee Allen show, so I'm not going to get into that in any sort of huge way here on this one. But it's interesting to note. I'm not convinced that Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac. But he did have a basement, that's for sure. So what are you thinking about that one, Zach?
That is, geez, that is one hell of a letter. Man, his ADD was flying that day.
And that's the longest letter he ever sent, too.
Man, dude, he was on some Adderall that night. He was just going and going and going. But it's really interesting. There's a lot of interesting things that he says in there. And personally, like I said before on the Arthur, I'm kind of more leaning towards that. So I think that that's kind of interesting. And the fact that he's showing everyone that he actually does know how to make bombs. So I mean, that's kind of, again, taking it up a notch, making it even more dangerous that he knows, it's proving that he knows how to do this.
Yeah, and that's not the first time that he would send or not the last time, rather, that he would send a diagram to a bomb that worked. And in fact, he's going to refer to this bomb in a later letter that we're going to read here shortly. But you remember when I was talking about Melvin Belli?
Oh, yes, good old Melvin.
Yeah, good old Mel. He got himself a letter from the Zodiac, and this came from the actual Zodiac because this was mailed with a piece of Paul Stein's shirt. So we know that, unlike the Jim Dunbar show where it's kind of up in the air and a lot of people, and I don't think it was the Zodiac calling in the Jim Dunbar show. Don't kill me, YouTubers.
I don't either.
Yeah, I really don't. But because the thing about the Jim Dunbar thing is the kid is like, seems really excited about being on TV because they'll ask, "Are you the Zodiac?" And he'll be like, "Yeah." "Did you kill all these people?" Sure. And so he seems a little flustered about the whole experience of appearing on a live morning show in San Francisco. So, but we know that the real Zodiac, either prompted by that or otherwise, did send Melvin Belli a letter. And as I said, with a scrappy shirt. And I'm going to show you that letter next. The Melvin Belli letter was received on December 20th of 1969. So that's exactly a year after the first official Zodiac murders on Lake Herman Road. Okay?
Okay.
All right. And what does this letter say?
This letter says, "Dear Melvin, this is the Zodiac speaking. I wish you a happy Christmas. The one thing I ask of you is this. Please help me. I cannot reach out for help because of this thing in me won't let me. I am finding it extremely difficult to hold it in check. I am afraid I will lose control again and take my 9th and possibly 10th victim. Please help me. I'm drowning. At the moment, the children are safe from the bomb because it is massive to dig. The trigger mech requires much work to get adjusted just right. But if I hold back too long from no 9, I will lose all control of myself and set the bomb up. Please help me. I cannot remain in control for much longer." And then he ended it, of course, with the famous Zodiac crosshairs. And like I said, that was sent to Melvin.
And there he's referring again. Now he's saying he has 9 or 10 victims when we only know of 5. So the kill count is going up.
He's stretching it a little bit.
Yeah. Because let's see, that was December. So the last known victim was October of 69. This was December of 69. So he's basically saying that he killed 5 more people in 2 months.
I don't buy it.
Yeah, I don't really buy that either. That's a lot of killing to not be caught or not be noticed. He said he was going to make them look like accidents and stuff, but I don't know. That seems like a short period of time to have killed 5 people. But I don't know. Never kill people, so only in movies. So who knows? Maybe you could do it.
I mean, as long as it took him to kill the first, 5, I'm just saying it just doesn't add up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's the Melvin Belli letter. I'm sure Melvin was quite fascinated when he opened the letter and found a piece of bloody shirt in there.
Hope you framed it.
I wonder if the Zodiac watched Jim Dunbar, because the guy on there was asking for help and just thought, I think I'm going to push this so that if they catch that guy, maybe they'll think that that guy was me. And this is sort of my theory about the Melvin Belli letter.
That's interesting. That actually is a very good point. That kind of fits the way the Zodiac is, the way he, thinks about things. So good point.
And it was a few months before another letter was received. April 20th, Hitler's birthday of 1970, came the next letter. This one was not to Melvin Belli, but it did have another cipher in it, and another cipher that was never unsolved. It's not a particularly long cipher. It only has 13 characters. But again, he's teasing his identity, right? So I'm going to show you this next letter. It's April 20th letter. Ready?
I'm ready.
And there you go. There's another bomb diagram. And you see that code there, never been solved. Some people say it's been solved. Again, it's in any of these codes, you can find a multitude of YouTube videos saying that they solved it. But now I'm going to read you the April 20th, 1970 letter. This is the Zodiac speaking. By the way, have you cracked the last cipher I sent you? My name is... I am mildly curious as to how much money you have on my head now. I hope you do not think that I was the one who wiped out that blue meanie with a bomb at the cop station, even though I talked about killing school children with one. It just wouldn't do to move in on someone else's territory. But there is more glory in killing a cop than a kid because a cop can shoot back. I have killed 10 people to date. It would have been a lot more, except that my bus bomb was a dud. I was swamped out by the rain we had a while back. The new bomb is set up like this. P.S. I hope you have fun trying to figure out who I killed. And at the bottom, it shows the Zodiac symbol with 10 out beside it, and then SFPD with 0, meaning I got 10. The San Francisco Police Department are still in the dark. They got big old goose egg.
Yeah, and again, he's getting more cocky, more arrogant.
Yeah, and there he is stating 10 victims, 5 unknown victims, or if he likes to count, he seems to like to count people who are injured too. So I don't know. I don't know if all those people are dead or if some of them were injured.
In the foot and then counts them. You can't do that.
Say that again.
He shoots him in the foot and counts it. You can't do that.
Yeah, he's like, I gave a guy a paper cut, number 8. But yeah, so there he is, and that is another bomb diagram that is for a bomb that could actually work. He says that he planted the bus bomb that he showed earlier and it didn't go off. Of course, we don't know that he planted it because it didn't go off. I mean, I could say that I planted a bomb, and if it doesn't go off, who knows if I did it or not, So I don't. Do you think he planted any of those bombs?
No, I don't. I think he was bullshitting everyone. I think he was trying to rile things up, stir the pot a bit. I don't think he actually planted any bombs anywhere.
And the bomb that the bomb that he showed there in that diagram had an interesting trigger on it. It actually had a light sensitive trigger. So the idea was that if a small car drove by, it wouldn't block out the light between the sun and the trigger. But if a bus drove by, a bus being taller, the light being blocked by the bus would set off the bomb with the light sensitive trigger. So this is a pretty
truck driver going by.
Oh God, yeah. If you drove an 18-wheeler, you're fucking done. But I mean, this is a pretty complicated bomb and concept of a bomb. But like the other, the bomb never went off. So who knows if he planted it or if he just had it in his mind like a fantasy and was drawing these diagrams and thinking, this might be fun to do, and just never did it. No bombs ever went off attributed to the Zodiac Killer.
Luckily, yes. Yeah, I think he, obviously he knew how, but I don't think he did it. I think he was just like, again, trying to scare people a bit.
And it was 8 days later after this. So remember, there'd been a long stretch of time. There had been December 20th to April 20th. So quite a few months, nothing is happening. No letters are being received. Another letter comes pretty quickly after the one that I just read. It came on April 28th to the San Francisco Chronicle, and that's April the 28th of 1970. And this was not an actual letter, it was a card, like the previous card. And I'm going to show you that now. And again, this is him trying to make a funny, because if you can read that, what that card says, it says, "Sorry to hear your ass is dragging." Get it? Your ass is dragging.
Yeah, he's got a very odd sense of humor.
Yeah, he's kind of needling them, saying, "Well, you haven't caught me yet, so your ass must be dragging."
And it also says, "I hope you enjoy yourselves when I have my blast. P.S. on back." And then he wrote some words on the back of the card.
And what's that say?
"If you don't want me to have this blast, you must do two things. Tell everyone about the bus bomb with all the details. I would like to see some nice Zodiac buttons wandering about town. Everyone else has buttons like Black Power, Melvin Eats Blubber, etc. Well, it would cheer me up considerably if I saw a lot of people wearing my buttons. Please, no nasty ones like Melvin's. Thank you." And it's signed with the Zodiac crosshairs. So now he's getting a little, weird. He's getting so cocky and arrogant about all this that he wants Zodiac buttons now to support, what he's doing and stuff. And he's definitely a nut job.
And it's interesting, he's kind of making a joke there also about Melvin Belli. Maybe because Melvin kind of was involved with this whole thing and then probably thought, wow, this isn't giving me enough publicity, and just sort of dumped it. So because he's talking there about a button that says Melvin Eats Blubber. There was actually not a button that said Melvin Eats Blubber. There was a button that said Melville Eats Blubber, and it's a joke about Moby Dick, because Melville wrote Moby Dick. Yeah, so whale blubber, it was the joke. But he didn't write Melville. He wrote Melvin. So he was kind of needling Melvin Belli a little bit there in that letter, which is kind of funny. But it would be interesting to see a bunch of people walking around with the Zodiac symbol on a button. You could probably still to this day produce those things, and they make a ton of money.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm quite sure that I've actually seen Zodiac buttons online.
Oh, really? Somebody's already, yeah. Well, that's not
jumped on that bandwagon, and you can actually, I don't recall the websites or how much they run for, but they're like black buttons with white Zodiac crosshairs.
Wow. Yeah, and they probably make a killing, because they do have these little, they're not conventions, but they're like get-togethers out at Lake Berryessa and stuff. And it's a little odd, because a lot of people who like the Zodiac case will go out there. And the reason I say it's odd is because I've seen some videos where people will go out there dressed with like the executioner's hood and the thing.
Really?
Yeah, they like do cosplay of the Zodiac at a place at a place where he actually murdered people, which I think is maybe a bit in bad taste, because I mean, this isn't like a Star Trek. Yeah, it's not a Star Trek character we're talking about here. This is a brutal murderer who savagely killed many teenagers and adults. And I don't know if I would cosplay him at the site of a murder with a bunch of other people sitting around having picnics. But, it's sort of like we were talking about on the Mythic Creatures show last week, where, Bigfoot has conventions and UFOs have conventions. Well, Zodiac kind of has conventions, but they don't call them conventions. I think they're just kind of get-togethers.
We just call them, you know, crazy people in the back of a parking lot talking about the Zodiac.
Yeah, we call it extreme bad taste is what we call it.
Oh, I'm still going to one of those Bigfoot conventions. I don't care. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I don't see why not go and see some of those people talk about their Bigfoot sightings. But anyway, back to the Zodiac. That was a total of 8 letters and cards with the ciphers that were included. All the ciphers were not decoded, only the one, the 408. And I showed you the 340, which is, like I say, very, very famous for its difficulty to decode. So what do you think overall, judging from just this slew of letters of the Zodiac? Do you think that all of these letters were in fact written by the Zodiac? Do you think there are any?
Oh, yes. And he gets more and more, like I said before, arrogant throughout the letters. He gets a little bit more comfortable with what he's doing. And I just find that very interesting because from the first letter, he's a little bit, you know, he doesn't really quite say who he is. He's, you know, he's a little timid in the way he words things. And then by the end, you know, he's asking for buttons, for God's sake. So it's just kind of, it's very interesting to see from, you know, throughout his letter, those, you know, 8 letters. It's just, it's very fascinating.
Yes. And these aren't all the letters. This is just half the letters, because as you guys know, this is a 2-part show. Those letters that we read you this time, many of them are confirmed Zodiac letters. I mean, the writing is consistent, and Paul Stein's shirt and the ciphers and stuff were obviously written by the same hand. When we get into next week's show, we're going to get into a few letters where the authenticity is questioned. Because as it went along, the Zodiac kind of spaced out his letter writing a bit. And, you know, as is the case with any sort of famous serial killer, there's always going to be people who write in their own Zodiac letter. It's like, I want mine printed too, you know.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that they're not the Zodiac. It's just they want something that they wrote printed. Now, I can't say that one of these in here somewhere wasn't a hoax. They all seem to be pretty legit this week. But next week we'll go into talking about some of the ones that maybe were a bit of a hoax.
Bit of a hoax. I'm very curious to, you know, talk about those ones too. That'll, you know, maybe 1 or 2 will be bullshit. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm willing to bet on a few of them, but we'll have to save that for next week for part 2 of the letters and ciphers. You have fun today, Zach? It flew by reading these letters.
Oh man, I had a blast, and I hope everyone that was watching had fun too.
Oh, you had a blast. I see where you're going.
Oh yeah, I had a blast.
Now, I don't want to get any bomb diagrams from you, sir.
Oh man, I could barely set my alarm clock. So, you know, I don't think you have to worry about that.
Well, as usual, it was a pleasure. And I'm glad you guys watched, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And please join us next week for part 2 of Letters and Ciphers from the Zodiac Killer. Until then, yes, until then, I want you all to have a good day and take care of yourselves.